Usually when we talk about a magic trick, there's like a moment of awe.
Right, the big reveal.
Yeah. The magician waves a wand and the rabbit disappears and everyone claps. But when you look at your Gump account 3 days before payday and wonder where on earth all your money went,
It's not exactly thrilling.
no, it's not. It's this sinking feeling. I mean,
Yeah.
you know you earned it, you know you deposited it, but the vault is somehow empty.
Yeah, and that is really the modern financial condition, isn't it?
Totally.
We're living in this era where spending has been engineered to be entirely frictionless. Like, it's designed to slip away.
Which is exactly what we are tackling today on this deep dive. We are putting together a holistic roadmap for, well, total financial control in 2026.
And we are really going everywhere with this one.
Oh, we are. I mean, we've pulled from so many different sources today. We've got micro-level personal finance hacks from Cash Command. We've got grocery strategies from Plan 8 AI.
Which is a lifesaver, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. And then we're looking at FinTech app reviews by Save the Student, and we are zooming all the way out to this massive global market report from Fidelity International.
Yeah, so from the literal leaks in your wallet to where trillions of dollars are moving globally.
Exactly. The mission here is to figure out the mechanisms of how we protect and grow our money right now. Because, if you're listening to this, you've probably felt that disappearing money act recently.
Everyone has.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can invest globally, we need capital. So we have to start at the micro level where the money is just quietly bleeding out.
Right. And the term researchers actually use for this is invisible spending.
Invisible spending.
Yeah. It's the quiet, constant drain. You know those digital subscriptions you forgot about, the auto renewals, and just those tiny daily impulse buys?
The $5 here, the $10 there.
Exactly. We always tend to look for massive singular expenses when our budget derails, but it is almost always 1,000 tiny cuts.
I always look at it like a digital casino.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right, because if you think about the architecture of online shopping or food delivery apps, they are perfectly designed to remove all the friction from the transaction.
Yeah, they want it to be seamless.
Seamless, exactly. You have one-click buying, you have facial recognition payments, your credit card details are permanently saved in the browser. It's designed so that parting with your money doesn't actually register in your brain as a loss.
And that is precisely the mechanism at play. I mean, the behavioral psychology behind that design is basically weaponized against your prefrontal cortex.
The logical part of the brain.
Right. These companies understand that a vast majority of consumer spending is emotional. We buy out of stress or, out of boredom.
Or just chasing a quick dopamine hit.
Exactly. By making the purchase instant, they bypass your logical processing entirely. You buy before you can even think about it.
So the counter strategy has to be intentionally rebuilding that friction. And the sources we're looking at, especially Cash Command, they recommend a pretty brutal first step.
The audit.
The audit. Meaning you have to sit down and actually scrutinize the last 30 days of your bank statements, line by line.
Which nobody wants to do.
No, it's painful.
It is, but most people assume they have an income problem, when in reality, they have a tracking problem. You cannot plug a leak you refuse to look at.
Right.
But the real behavioral shift actually happens after the audit, when you implement the 24-hour rule.
Okay, right. Forcing a pause. So if I see a jacket online or like a new gadget, I am literally not allowed to hit buy for a full day.
Exactly. And the reason this works isn't just about financial discipline. It's about neurochemistry.
Okay, explain that.
You are intentionally introducing a temporal roadblock. Over those 24 hours, the emotional urgency.
That spike of dopamine.
Right, that spike telling you that you absolutely need this item to be happy, it dissipates. By the next day, your logical brain is back online, and you often realize, well, you don't care about the item at all.
You're actively reversing the casino design, so it means going into your apps and actually deleting your saved card details.
Yes, force yourself to get up and find your wallet.
It's huge. And unsubscribing from those marketing emails that are optimized to tempt you. And honestly, I love this tip. If you have a massive leak in a specific category, like dining out, the recommendation is to switch back to physical cash.
Because handing over a physical $20 bill actually registers as a psychological loss.
Yeah, tapping a piece of plastic or tapping your watch feels like nothing.
It's monopoly money. And that psychological awareness ties directly into the pay yourself first model.
Oh, this is a classic for a reason.
It is. The most effective system design is setting up an automatic transfer the very minute your paycheck hits your account. You move the capital to a separate savings account before you ever see it.
Because visible money is vulnerable money.
Exactly.
If it's just sitting in your main checking account, your brain calculates that as available capital.
It requires a really profound identity shift. You have to ask yourself before every non-essential purchase, do I want this fleeting item, or do I want the identity of someone who has financial peace? You have to transition from being someone who merely earns money to someone who actively protects it.
That is such a good point. And that brings up a really interesting environment where that identity is tested, like weekly.
The grocery store.
Yes. Let's move from the digital casino to the physical one. Because the behavioral economics of supermarkets are just as predatory, if not more so, than an app on your phone.
Oh, supermarkets are masterclasses in cognitive overload. The layout, the sensory cues, those end cap displays.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, they're all designed to induce decision fatigue so you eventually just give up and start throwing things in your cart.
And we fall for it. I mean, we go in feeling aspirational. Planet AI had this great term, we buy ingredients for imaginary recipes.
Oh, that is so true.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. You buy a bunch of fresh produce and complex ingredients because you envision yourself, cooking this elaborate, healthy meal on a Tuesday night after a 10-hour workday.
But the reality of Tuesday night hits. You are completely exhausted,
Yeah.
You order takeout, and those good intentions end up just rotting in the crisper drawer.
Yes. The freezer should be a backup, not a graveyard. It's aspirational spending pretending to be grocery shopping. So, how do we outsmart the supermarket's behavioral design?
Well, it comes down to lowering your cognitive load before you ever step through the doors. True savings in the grocery store do not come from starving yourself or, living on instant noodles.
Right.
They come from preventing food waste and utilizing structure.
It begins with the prep, which actually isn't meal prepping, but data gathering.
Okay.
You audit your pantry and fridge first, creating a running use this soon list.
So if I have half a bag of spinach and some eggs nearing their expiration, that dictates my menu rather than whatever random recipe caught my eye on social media.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
And from there, you build a strategically grouped grocery list.
Grouped by the physical sections of the store. Produce, dairy, pantry. I see the logic here. It acts as a blinder.
It does. If you only have to visit 3 specific aisles, you aren't wandering past the promotional displays in the snack aisle just to see what's there.
You are limiting your exposure to temptation. Furthermore, the data suggests building your meals around highly flexible, budget-friendly staples. We were talking about beans, lentils, oats, frozen vegetables, store-brand yogurt.
And I noticed a huge emphasis in the sources on checking unit prices. The price per ounce or per 100 grams rather than the sticker price.
Absolutely essential.
Especially when it comes to convenience packaging, you are paying a massive, sometimes like 300% markup just because someone else pre-chopped an onion or washed the salad greens.
Right. You're paying a premium for convenience that eats directly into your investable capital.
Yeah.
But, to bring this back to reality for a second.
Yeah.
Managing unit prices, maintaining grouped lists, manually transferring savings, it all requires a high degree of sustained executive function.
It's exhausting.
It is. And human willpower is notoriously finite.
Right. If I'm listening to this, I might be thinking, look, I work 50 hours a week, I have kids, I just don't have the mental bandwidth to calculate unit prices or manually transfer $10 every Tuesday.
Which is why the landscape in 2026 is so fascinating. You no longer have to rely exclusively on human willpower.
Because of AI.
Exactly. You can outsource your financial discipline to AI.
Okay, this is where we get into the FinTech assistant tools reviewed by Save the Student. How are these AI bots actually operating under the hood?
So they utilize open banking APIs to link to your primary bank account in a read-only mode.
Read-only. Okay.
Right, they can't initiate random transfers out of nowhere to other people, but they can analyze your entire transaction history. The algorithm looks at your recurring utility bills, your rent, your historical daily spending, and your income. It then calculates, with remarkable precision, the exact amount of redundant cash you won't miss.
So it knows I can afford to part with $12 this week without bouncing a check, and it just automatically squirrels it away via direct debit.
Precisely. It automates the friction.
That is wild. Let's look at the actual apps dominating this space right now, because the mechanisms and the rewards really differ wildly. Plum is a major player.
Yes, very popular.
Their basic autosave is fee-free, And the algorithm is apparently smart enough to safely save small amounts even if you are dipping into your overdraft, which is a wild level of precision.
It really is.
Plus, they're offering interest rates up to 3.95% AER.
Let's clarify AER really quickly for anyone who might not know.
Yeah.
It stands for annual equivalent rate.
Right.
It's essentially the official rate that tells you exactly how much interest you'll earn over a full year, taking into account the effect of compounding.
Got it. So you're earning almost 4% on money you didn't even notice you saved.
Exactly.
Then you have CHIP, which seems geared towards specific savings goals. They offer a higher return, up to 4.33% AER, but the mechanism is different. They actually charge a 45p fee for every single autosave they make on your behalf.
Which means if the AI is only saving £2 at a time, that fee is eating a massive percentage of your capital.
Oh, true.
You have to ensure the algorithm is moving larger chunks to make that fee structure viable. Also, free users pay a 0.25% fee on investments.
Good point to keep in mind. Then there's Moneybox, which relies heavily on roundups. It tracks your connected cards, rounds up your, say, $3.50 coffee to $4, and banks the 50 cents.
A classic strategy.
But the most interesting mechanism they use to counter behavioral spending is their notice accounts.
Oh, this is a fantastic example of engineered friction.
Right, because if you put your money in a notice account, you literally have to wait anywhere from 32 to 95 days to withdraw it.
You can't just access it on a whim.
No. You tap withdraw, and the app essentially says, okay, see you in 3 months. It completely neuters the ability to impulse buy. And the traditional banks are catching up too. Chase is offering a massive 5% AER on their roundups.
Though that only works with their specific debit card and resets yearly, I believe.
True. And Monzo lets you create up to 20 different digital pots, earning up to 3.75% AER.
But, we need to look at the structural reality of these platforms.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I have some serious pushback here.
Let's hear it.
I am handing over a read-only API to my entire financial life to an AI startup. What happens if this cool new FinTech company just goes bankrupt on a Tuesday? Does my money disappear into the ether?
It's a critical concern, absolutely. But the structural safeguard is actually quite robust.
Okay.
The capital isn't sitting on the startup's servers. The cash in those virtual pots is held as digital cash by external, fully regulated partner banks.
Oh, I see.
And it's protected by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, the FSCS. So if the app goes bust, the underlying regulated bank simply returns your funds.
Okay, so the money is secure. But my other issue is the business model. These basic tiers are free. Nobody builds complex AI algorithms for free. If I'm not paying a monthly subscription, how are they keeping the lights on?
And this is the fundamental trade-off of the 2026 digital economy. They are monetizing your behavioral data.
There it is.
The app knows exactly where you shop, what your energy bills are, and how much debt you carry. They use that hyper-specific profile to recommend targeted financial products.
Like what?
Well, they will suggest a specific credit card or a cheaper utility provider right inside the app. If you click and switch, the app gets a hefty commission.
Wait, so I am trading my financial privacy to an algorithm so it can act as an incredibly well-informed salesperson. That feels a bit dystopian, doesn't it? They're watching my every purchase.
It is entirely a trade-off. You are exchanging your data for discipline.
Data for discipline.
For a lot of people who have never been able to build an emergency fund, outsourcing that discipline and just ignoring the targeted ads is a trade they are happily willing to make. But it requires you to be fully aware of the transaction taking place.
That is a heavy concept. Data for discipline. But let's take that exact same AI mechanism, algorithms analyzing massive data sets to find hidden efficiencies, and let's zoom way out. Because AI isn't just tracking our pocket change.
No, it's not.
It is driving the global markets.
It is the defining economic engine of our current macro environment.
Looking at this massive Fidelity International 2026 Outlook report, the numbers are almost hard to comprehend. The Magnificent Seven tech giants are sitting at a valuation of over $21.4 trillion.
Trillion. With a T.
Yeah, trillion. But the report highlights a major shift in how AI is functioning this year.
Right, because over the past few years, the market was rewarding the hype and the infrastructure build-out, companies buying the chips and building the data centers.
The theoretical stuff.
Exactly. What the Fidelity analysts are seeing on the ground now is the transition from expenditure to actual monetization. AI is generating real-world corporate revenue.
The mechanism they highlighted with the telecom industry blew my mind.
It's incredible.
Telecoms are using AI algorithms to monitor network traffic in real time and dynamically powering down mobile base stations the millisecond traffic drops, which is saving massive amounts of electricity. It's not just a chatbot, it's physical structural efficiency.
And that efficiency is translating globally. The report notes that 82% of analysts covering China and 71% of those covering Japan expect AI to drive a positive impact on corporate profit margins this year.
But the broader global landscape isn't just a smooth upward trajectory of AI profits.
No, definitely not.
The Fidelity report outlines some severe structural turbulence. We're seeing sticky inflation that just won't come down to target levels,
Right.
wavering U.S. consumer confidence, and serious geopolitical fragmentation disrupting global supply chains. Just to be clear on the facts here, U.S. tariffs and trade policies are causing global fragmentation.
We are effectively seeing the world economy splinter into regional blocks, and this is driven by restrictive trade policies and shifting manufacturing hubs. This fragmentation means the old rules of investing are breaking down.
So what does this all mean? Tie this together for the listener. We just went from a $50 grocery list to Brazilian sovereign bonds and a $21 trillion tech market. How does this macro view apply to the learner listening right now who's just trying to manage their own portfolio?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it applies because the foundational principle of system design is identical. Whether you are managing your household cash flow or a global multi-asset portfolio, you can no longer rely on the default settings.
What do you mean by the default settings?
Traditionally, the default setting for a retail investor was the 60/40 portfolio.
Right.
You put 60% of your money into a broad index of mostly U.S. stocks and 40% into bonds to act as a shock absorber. You set it and forgot it for 30 years.
The 60/40 portfolio was basically the Windows 95 of investing. It worked flawlessly for its specific era.
That is a perfect analogy. It worked beautifully when inflation was low and global trade was rapidly expanding. But if you try to run that Windows 95 operating system in 2026's fragmented inflationary environment, the system's going to crash.
Because it's too rigid.
Exactly. U.S. markets are incredibly concentrated in just a few tech stocks right now, and bonds simply aren't providing the same safety net against inflation.
So the traditional advice of just dumping money into an index fund and ignoring it, you're saying that's actively dangerous now?
It is certainly exposing you to systemic risks that didn't exist a decade ago. True financial control today requires active global diversification. You have to look outside the U.S.-centric bubble, looking to Europe, Asia, and alternative assets like gold to build resilience.
And the Fidelity analysts point to some fascinating mechanisms happening internationally. Let's look at Japan. Their stock market is booming, and it's not just an AI halo effect.
No, it's driven by corporate governance reform.
Specifically, they are unwinding decades of cross-shareholdings. Explain cross-shareholdings for us.
Okay, so historically, Japanese corporations would buy large chunks of stock in allied companies and vice versa.
Like a buddy system.
Basically. They didn't do it for investment returns. They did it to protect management from outside shareholder pressure. It essentially locked up massive amounts of capital.
Just dead money.
Right. But now the government and regulators are finally forcing them to unwind these holdings, sell off those shares, and return that trapped cash to actual investors through dividends and buybacks. And Korea is implementing a very similar framework with their Value Up program.
It's unlocking structural value. And then there's the emerging market data, which completely challenged my assumptions. When you hear emerging market debt, it sounds inherently risky.
Usually, yes.
But the report highlights sovereign bonds in places like Brazil.
And the mechanism there is all about real yield. Brazil currently has an interest rate sitting around 15%.
And their inflation rate is hovering around 5%.
Exactly. So if you're yielding 15% and inflation is eating 5% of your purchasing power, you are still netting a 10% real return on your capital.
That's massive.
In a fragmented global economy, that kind of real yield acts as a massive systemic shock absorber for a portfolio.
It's incredible how it all connects. Okay, let's step back and look at the whole picture. Taking total control of your money in 2026 is clearly a multi-tiered operation.
It absolutely is.
It starts at the micro level by identifying the invisible leaks. You have to actively fight the digital casino by auditing your spending and forcing a 24-hour pause to let your logical brain override your emotional impulses.
From there, you engineer your physical environment. You lower the cognitive load of grocery shopping with grouped lists to combat decision fatigue, And if you choose to make the trade-off, you leverage AI FinTech tools to automate your discipline.
Quietly extracting capital before you can even spend it.
Exactly.
And finally, you take that rescued capital and apply the exact same logic to the macro level. You recognize that the outdated 60-40 default setting is broken. You seek out real yields in emerging markets and structural reforms in Asia to insulate your wealth from global fragmentation.
It's a comprehensive roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
But, it does leave us with a rather profound philosophical question to consider.
Lay it on me.
We are looking at a future where we are entirely outsourcing our financial discipline to algorithms. We have AI analyzing our behavioral data to dictate our savings, algorithms managing network efficiencies for global corporations, and automated platforms rebalancing our international portfolios.
The code is running the financial engine from top to bottom.
Exactly. But what does that mean for human financial literacy in the long run?
Oh, that's interesting.
If we completely remove the friction of saving and let the machines make all the structural decisions, do we eventually become financially blind? We no longer know how to save, only that the app does it for us. Or does removing that exhausting daily cognitive burden finally liberate us? Does it free human beings to focus our mental energy on what actually brings us joy, rather than obsessing over unit prices and interest rates?
Are we liberating ourselves, or are we just becoming passive passengers in our own financial lives? That is a fascinating tension, and probably one we are all going to have to navigate very, very soon. Well, on that note, we are going to wrap up this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, whether you are trying to outsmart a supermarket layout or hunting for yield in global markets, the first step is always understanding the system design. Keep exploring, keep questioning the defaults, and we'll catch you on the next one.